Most agencies are built on a broken math problem. More specifically, revenues growing with headcount and clients, but margins shrinking as you go. Did you know that 51% of agencies cite that market volatility is their number one obstacle when creating an agency because of the unpredictability of fulfilling client work? If you don't have a productized service, then what happens is you're more so of a white glove agency serving various different needs for a client, which can either drive up how long and how much labor it takes to fulfill a certain job, and also the costs that it takes to do all that, from time and money. And the traditional model, and yes, by the way, I'm going to explain a new model that is emerging right now, is that the more clients you have, the more revenue you have, the more time management you have to worry about, whether it's, say, you working with clients, managing them, managing a team and all overhead with it, scaling up more your operations and ads, the thinner your overall margins. And the trap here is that every single client that you onboard and works with you, it's linear because every single client requires proportional hours to fulfill the task or the jobs. And scaling means training, hiring, getting more people to work with you, making sure that they're fulfilling the growth. So it's very linear in terms of like how you're growing with your clients and as you're growing your agency, which has been a big bottleneck for a very long time. And not only that it's linear, but there's also a sort of diminishing in returns in terms of profitability as you grow. And the only way around that is to figure out how can you decrease how much you're spending on operations, or how can you optimize your processes. But it tends to be overall the trajectory very linear in terms of its growth versus something that has a crazy hockey stick growth, like say a startup. The beautiful thing about agencies is that they're highly profitable in the very beginning, especially if the operations are quite low, and you can aim for profitability margins of say 70% plus, even up to 90% if say you're all inbound or just getting referral based, or even if you're just marketing mainly through like organic marketing, if your cost of acquisition is quite cheap. However, when it comes to actually scaling your whole entire operation, that's when things get a bit tricky, and then your operations and marketing and things that you're doing to drive the business forward tend to decrease and make the margins thinner, such as with ads, fulfilling client work, how much time it's spending to fulfill all the stuff, hiring overseas or maybe domestically. It really depends where, but all this stuff can easily eat into a lot of margins. And the more you grow, the thinner those margins get. And a lot of this work that you're doing for clients, it can tend to be very repetitive. It could either burn out your team easily, it could make your team focus on things that aren't necessarily the highest ROI. And these hours and resources that are getting put into repetitive work within your agencies could easily be allocated somewhere elsewhere that can drive your business forward even further versus just working on the things that are constantly being repetitive within your ops on a daily basis. Now, I want to show you here on the screen two sorts of business models with two different kinds of growing curves. The first curve is an agency. It's just very linear, whereas the other one is a startup. It tends to be quite unprofitable in the beginning, but over time as a crazy hockey stick growth, because if you achieve product market fit, there's very little to no cost in terms of the fulfillment, because that's just the nature of software. And I know I'm now digging into startup territory, but hear me out here because what I'm about to present after is quite important for agencies. The thing about SaaS and software is that you build it once and then you can scale them infinitely. As long as you have some sort of distribution, you can continue scaling it and you're profitable. But the problem with SaaS is that in the beginning, because of the customer acquisition cost or whatever you're spending to acquire a customer, it doesn't mean you're profitable off the bat. Because say if it costs you, say, $30 to acquire a customer to pay you $10 a month subscription, you're not profitable or even breaking even until the third cycle, which could be month 3, week 3. It really depends on what kind of subscription cycle your customers are on. But that's why they tend to be harder to scale initially, but assuming you have some sort of virality effect or you have some other means of low customer acquisition cost, if you can scale or have some sort of funding in the beginning to grow your SaaS profitably, they can become incredibly profitable, but it's very hard in the beginning if you do not have some sort of product market fit or some sort of product people are willing to pay for. But the beauty about them is if you build them once, you can distribute them to millions or even billions of people at little to no cost, which tends to have very high profitability margins. But the thing is, agencies couldn't have done this in the past until just now. You started to kind of see this in 2025, but now in 2026, it's becoming more and more obvious because agencies are being transformed in terms of how everything's evolving with AI agents. What was historically impossible until now is that agencies can now scale their businesses like a startup. And if you look at this growth curve here, this is the difference of what it looks like now. What it looks like now is that now you can become profitable from the jump and also scale in a non-linear sort of fashion, which can give you that hockey stick growth if you have the foundation right. The shift is now that if you're an agency that is delivering productized services where you're doing a lot of repetitive work, where there are easily ways where you can systemize and package things so you can offload them into agents, you can now scale at a non-linear fashion. And the reason why is because the cost and time to fulfill a client, to onboard a client, to follow up with clients, to acquire clients, to market yourself out there, to fulfill products, to serve customers, all that stuff now can require little to no labor because of agents. If you implement agents into your agencies, you can now enable your agency to scale at a startup rate. And the beauty about this is that you can have one or two agents doing all this stuff for you. And by that, I mean an onboarding agent or a customer service agent or whatever it is. Because if you have one agent that can talk to 100 different people every single day, you're not paying more people to manage all these customer support tickets. You just have one agent working for your business every single day, fulfilling all these customer tickets. Same thing for the onboarding. If you have a very thorough onboarding process that is very systematic, that is very time consuming, that is very costly on your overhead, if you build an onboarding agent to fulfill all this for you, you can remove a human from being the bottleneck to having an agent serving your customers every single day on a repeat instantaneously and to near 99% accuracy in terms of how you're looking for the customer onboarding process to look and feel, to give someone that a moment once they reach the activation point. So whether you're looking at it from delivery to sales to operations, you can at some point become a agency factory where if you simply just start with simple operations, maybe say marketing, maybe posting on social media, maybe simple follow-ups or like answering phone calls. Once you get all this stuff out of the way, you can remove a lot of bottlenecks that are keeping your agency from scaling very fast because now you can start to afford to spend more money on operations, productizing your systems, producing more content, optimizing your ads with agents versus scaling your agency with more people. If you can simply just remove your people from these easy automatable tasks with agents, that have more so of a brain versus just a simple end-to-end automation or some sort of Zapier automation, you can now start to scale like a startup. So I suggest starting with simple ops. Start with maybe say marketing. And then when it comes to actually product fulfillment, you can at some point just become an agency that is just fulfilling clients on demand with agents handling all the workload of giving them a result because that's what people come to you for some sort of result. So if you can create a system, which is pretty much the business here, that just generates a consistent result with your agency, you can just become an AI agency factory that does this 24/7 on repeat without being constrained by people as you scale your revenues and clients. And now you can actually afford yourself to scale like a startup. Because like I said earlier, the problem with agencies traditionally is that you scale linearly. Whereas with startups is that you're unprofitable first and then you scale extremely fast. But now, for the first time in history, it's possible with AI agents inside agencies to scale profitably from the beginning, and then they can have a hockey stick growth, assuming they implement AI agents into various departments of their agency to scale like a startup for the first time in history. Whereas the old model, it required, say, if you're managing 10 clients, you needed 3 to 5 people to manage these people, maybe multiple developers, support people, whatever. Whereas, say, at some point you scale to 100 people, you need about 30, 50 people to manage all these 100 people. But the difference now is that you could still have those 3 to 5 initial people from the beginning with the agency. And the only difference is once you get to the 100 client mark, you can still have the 35 people, but you're just assisted by a bunch of agents resolving everything, customer tickets, productizing the services, onboarding them. So you can move very lean like an agency, but scale like a startup. So whether you're a solopreneur, consultant, you can start initially like this and then build up agents within your agency to scale like a startup. Or alternatively, if you're already offering productized services where you are some sort of agency, you can start thinking about where can I implement agents into my operations to scale like a startup, from delivery to operations to marketing. I suggest something that is low risk, but very time consuming from the very beginning. And then once you get all those out of the way, figure out how you can market better with agents, how you can deliver better or faster your product. Because the shift is you don't want to just do custom work for people. Like sure, in the beginning, that's very valuable. And at some point, I'm sure agents will be able to do a bunch of custom work. Like you can already do that right now with agents, right? But we want to scale with systems. And these systems specifically I'm talking about here are with agents. And the other shift is with the delivery. So rather than being constrained and just focusing primarily on how much humans can deliver to the client, it's how much can an AI orchestrator within your whole entire organization can coordinate various different agents based on events, triggers, onboarding, different events that are happening in the background to then fulfill a client to get them the results that they came to you originally for. Just recently, I was in San Francisco and I was at a Founders Inc. event. And if you don't know what Founders Inc. is, they tend to host a bunch of people at their site where they tend to invest into a few startups after every cohort begins. And there was this one startup I saw which was very interesting, and they are a small agency, but they're out here delivering a pure result with agents. So it's just a small group of people, and people would come to them, or I guess you can say prospects and clients, and what they would do for them is, hey, we'll guarantee you 1 million views with our agents. We'll batch produce you a bunch of content. You just come to us with your brand, your guidelines, what you're looking for, and we'll produce you the views. So that's kind of the shift that is happening. If you can get people the outcomes, the guarantees, or whatever with your agency, and you can just pretty much have the sub-agents to fulfill the work. Like imagine if you just have a content factory agency that's constantly just pumping out millions of views, which is now very possible. How much faster do you believe you'll be able to scale? Quite fast. So the opportunity moving in 2026 is to be able to scale like a startup as an agency. You want to move away from linear growth to more so having a growth that can scale like a startup. That'll be all for the video. I hope you found this insightful. Let me know what you want to see next. Subscribe to my channel if you like learning about agents, if you want to know more about them, how you can apply them to your business. By the way, I did want to mention that I have a free AI audit tool for your business. So if you're looking to see where you can buy back more time, where you're spending a lot, or where you have some sort of money leakage, check it out on my site. It's going to be in the description. It's a simple instant report in roughly 60 seconds if you just fill out some information, and you'll get all the insights you need from there. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.